was preparing to strike Syria because they were preparing to strike Syria. Ultimately, it seems that they're not going to do it anytime soon.
And you've written for the Daily Beast about how there are some in the administration frustrated by the lack of action.
Right, and if the administration was just all talk and no action, well, they fooled a lot of people inside their own administration as well. So it's all true that a lot of reporters have come late to the ISIS story. It's also true that the administration has come late to the ISIS story, which has been well written about in the Arab media and in the region for over a year. It's also true that ISIS also benefits from hyping their own threat. They have a huge social media campaign just for that purpose. So that's kind of a perfect storm of interests of both us and them hyping this threat, but there is some there. And let's not, I mean, what would they have to do to actually be a real threat? They've taken over huge parts of 2 countries. They're in 2 other countries. They have cities. They have billions of dollars. They're committing atrocities on YouTube. So let's stipulate here that beyond the rhetoric, this is a persistent and serious threat that is getting more coverage, as it rightly should. Let's also point out here that those reporters who actually are doing the on-the-ground reporting are putting themselves in grave danger, and James Foley is the perfect example of this. There is a huge effort to verify these facts. It's extremely difficult, and everyone who does this at the risk of their own life.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I want us to keep in our minds today Steve Sotloff and the other journalists who are still missing in Syria. But Naomi, I heard you wanting to jump in there.
Really what I'm worried about from where I sit, because I get information streams from citizens around the world, is that the same story and the same talking points from officials about how Britons and Australians and Canadians and Americans are joining this fight is identical in an echo chamber around the world. And the reason I'm worried about that,
I mean, first of all,
how do we know?
Because we have extensive intelligence assets on the ground. All of these countries have hundreds of CIA, MI6, Turkish intelligence, French intelligence, not to mention all of the Syrians who have been tracking ISIS and all of these groups for 3 years. There's a ton of evidence. It's true that, let's also remember here that the administration's declaratory policy, what they say, and their functional policy, what they're doing on the ground, are 2 totally different things. So at the same time they're hyping the threat of ISIS, the president is deciding not to confront ISIS in Syria. So it's not as if the Pentagon and the White House are pushing us towards war in Syria. Quite the contrary.
It's not what I'm suggesting. It's not what I'm suggesting.
Right. So what's the point of the hype? The idea is the point of the hype is sort of a cover-your-butt mission by the administration. They know that Americans, after the death of James Foley, are very concerned about the ISIS threat. I think the bottom line here is that we have a lot of first-hand information because people on the ground, without the filter of all sorts of people.
You're citing YouTube videos. That is not a source for a credible journalist to cite. And this is the kind of journalism we're doing.
Listen, we need
where's the video taken? Who was it taken by? Just bear with me. What we're pioneering on Daily Cloud is citizen journalism that actually verifies. It's a connected world. Everyone has cell phones. So if you're saying that in a major city in Syria, $250,000 people are being, I'm sorry, 250,000 citizens are being rounded up, or people are being crucified upside down, and these various atrocity stories which always accompany the drumbeat to war, right? They may be happening, but verify. There are credible people on the ground, and we did this in Gaza, we did this in the south of Israel, and we knocked a lot of stories out of the park.
I mean, that is going on. There are thousands of people.
Sure, but source the videos. Just source them. You can't, if you're a real journalist, you can't say, oh, this is on YouTube. It's a video of an atrocity.
But no one's saying that.
People make fake videos all the time.
Yeah, but that's a total straw man, because let's take the James Foley video, for example, right? That was a video put out by the official ISIS media hub, right, and propagated by ISIS, but it endured an enormous amount of scrutiny. There was lots of people saying that the video was faked, or that the person doing the talking wasn't the person doing the killing. It underwent through a very, sort of crowdsourced method by journalists, activists, eyewitnesses on the ground, citizen journalists, a lot of vetting, and then that led to a lot of revelations about it. Right, so that's what's happening. So I don't understand what your criticism is.
I'm criticizing the major news media for not doing that kind of vetting and leaving it to citizen journalists to ask tough questions.
It's imperfect, it's a mess, but that's the best that we can do. We need to do better, and the government needs to do better, but in the end, we can't blame the media for what's going on in Syria.
I agree with a lot of both of what you're saying, and I'm going to wrap up there. Josh Rogin and Naomi Wolf, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Let me close with one more thought. This is from the journalist Kurt Eichenwald, who wrote this in Newsweek. ISIS can't hurt the U.S. in any significant way unless Americans let it. That is, unless Americans give in to fear and hysteria.